Welcome into the Trevor Staub Show, episode number 12. Today we have a special episode. This is our first live in-studio guest. We have Brodie Smith. Brodie's joining us while he's in town to talk all things current in his disc golf season, kind of some of the origins of his disc golf career, and what he's got planned for the future. So let's check it out. All right, we're here now with our first in-studio guest. It made sense since Brodie was in town to have him as the first in-studio guest, but it's kind of a different feel for the show this week, but hopefully you all enjoy it. It should make for, honestly, an easier interview experience. But we've got Brodie Smith, as you can see. Thanks for joining the show, Brodie.
Thank you.
So we'll just get right into it with DDO, since that's where you've just come from. That's kind of like the big in the news subject with you at the moment. So your third place finish at DDO was your best to date on the Elite Series, on the tour. What do you think was the key factor in your game that allowed you to break through at this event? Not necessarily kind of ignoring a lot of the other stuff, which we'll get to with the conditions and everything, but just kind of in your game, what was working?
I think I had two shots that were I felt very confident with. I had my overstable nuke that I could throw into the headwinds with a slight hyzer, and it ended up being a very straight shot. And then I had a very overstable force that would still finish left. And especially on the Supreme 18 course, I was able to still, even with the conditions the way they were, I was able to still hit my landing zones that I was trying to go for at a pretty high consistent basis. I believe I had maybe 3 OB shots between the first 2 rounds, and keeping the disc in play allowed me to have a lot of birdie opportunities, which allowed me to have both my rounds at Supreme to be under par, which in the conditions were very difficult to do.
Right. Yeah. It definitely seemed like just hanging on at that course was obviously one of the major keys. Talking a little bit more about the conditions now, obviously many players were super frustrated with the windy conditions at DDO. We saw a lot more people be outspoken about the wind and kind of how that played more than ever before that I remember. What do you think about playing in the wind, and do you think it creates unfair playing conditions when it gets severe to the kind of the conditions that it was at DDO?
Yeah, I mean, I like playing in the wind a lot. Obviously, this year has been kind of nuts. It feels like every tournament we've gone to, it's been windy. But I do enjoy it, obviously, with the creativity that it brings. And it does also change kind of putting up, where you can't just have the same exact putt no matter where you are. The wind, you're going to adjust kind of the angle of how you're releasing the disc or how much spin you're putting on it and stuff based off of if it's a left to right, tail, head, all that stuff. But I don't know. I think the wind, the way I view it is, this tournament was a 4-round tournament. It was windy for 3 of those rounds, and it was kind of windy on Sunday, but not nearly as bad. Over 3 rounds, 54 holes, probably anywhere close to 100 shots maybe. The wind is going to give you good breaks, and it's going to give you bad breaks. And I feel like over the course of the tournament, it's probably going to even itself out amongst the people. But I think some people... There's a difference between throwing a spike hyzer into a right to left wind, let's say, right? You throw a huge spike hyzer into a right to left wind, and a gust happens, and it just soars your disc up and out of bounds, and you're like, what the heck? This is insane. Instead of throwing a low flex line where the wind has, even if a gust does happen, it's going to affect the disc way less because you're not showing the flight plate, all these type of things. So that's the way I viewed it, is you could go the route of I'm just going to play disc golf the way I normally play it. Yeah. And when the wind screws me, I'm going to be we're not even playing disc golf out here. Or you can say, okay, there's a right to left wind. What shot can I throw to where if the wind does pick up or gust or whatever, my disc still has a chance of staying in bounds. And I think you saw the difference in styles with a lot of people and how they played. And I think the scores kind of showed people that were willing to maybe not throw the most aggressive or the shot that would get them the furthest down the fairway or the closest to the basket, but they're willing to throw the shots to keep them in bounds and continue to give them birdie chances.
Right. Yeah, I do agree. I think there's some disc golfers that probably just weren't willing to adapt their game. Some of them just jump very quickly to that conclusion of like, well, this is just unfair. It's not really in my control.
I was in that crowd. I've done a good job of like removing myself from some of the people that were on tour that might have been feeding me information and stuff that let me go down that kind of rabbit hole. But I've removed myself from that, and I've done a much better job of just like playing disc golf and letting whatever the wind is or whatever the weather is, letting that be. I can't control it. All I can control is how I react to it and how I play.
Yeah.
And I think a common thing that everyone saw was just kind of this like complaining, whining nature versus just some people that were like, I'm taking this as an opportunity. Like
Right.
this is an
Exactly.
opportunity. Like if I have 50 people in the field that are all complaining and whining and be like, we can't even play in this. This is impossible.
Yeah.
That's a much smaller field of people I have to beat. So that's a huge opportunity for me to be able to have a top finish. So I think that was a huge step for me, is like removing myself from this group that, you know, would just kind of complain and whine about stuff. And obviously I'm still going to make mistakes, and I'm still probably going to say some stuff. I did say on debate night for people to call me out if they ever do. And you can call me out too. I don't care. Call me out if you ever do see me complain and whining and be like, hey man, this is kind of soft, because this is our job. Like our job is to go out there and perform regardless of the conditions.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. We all played under the same conditions.
Right.
We all played on the same tee pads. We all played on the same baskets.
Right.
It's whoever did it the best.
My thought was, because I agree, I think that it's entertaining to a certain extent and interesting to watch when you see players having to adapt to the wind. But my kind of thought was, the wind in disc golf has such a large effect on the game, more than probably any other sport. Because even in golf, you're going to see crazy winds, but obviously a golf ball is moving so much faster; it's penetrating the wind.
Football,
a lot more.
a little bit maybe,
You're right.
because you're going
to see a lot more running.
A lot more running,
but the sport can still be played in a way that it's still football.
Correct.
Disc golf, I don't believe it's this bad with disc golf. It still looks like disc golf. It's not like ridiculous, but I almost wonder if the tour believes that super windy conditions display the sport maybe in a fine way, but not the way they would like on a daily basis. If, because obviously, early in the tour, where are we scheduling events? For the warmer weather, right? Because it is a better way to display disc golf. Will wind ever become a factor? And that was what I was wondering, because World Championships are in Kansas this year. Now, later in the year. So, but like, will there ever be a point where the Pro Tour is like, let's not schedule events for super windy areas because it's just not the best way to display the sport?
I think that does make sense. I think if they could control the weather, they would much rather have like 15 miles per hour than gusts over 30.
Yeah.
Now, this tournament was by far the windiest tournament I've ever played in. So to me, this seemed like kind of an anomaly. It wasn't seeming like this is like the norm. I will say, I think Jeff Spring might have said something in an interview about how they will look to potentially like postpone some rounds or tournaments if the wind gets too high. And I'm sure everyone's seen those clips of people playing where, they're 5 feet away and they throw and it just like,
it's gone. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
there is a point.
We weren't playing in that type of wind.
There is a point where
that
it gets
wind,
useless.
yeah, that wind is the point of where it's like, okay, you can't even putt from 5 feet.
Right.
This was all I feel like there was never a time where I was like, this is outrageous. I can't throw the disc.
Right.
And obviously you saw people on both the FPO and MPO side handle it. So I just thought it was a cool wrinkle to see, similar to when like it's rainy, right?
Yeah,
Similar to when the conditions are really, really bad. You see some people that are just like, golf's the same way. Like, there are people that bet on golf and they'll look at the weather because they know some guys kind of pack it in when the weather's not ideal.
Yeah.
And some guys are like grinders and are willing to kind of stick it out. So I think it adds a little wrinkle to it. And I'm not complaining at all.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's very interesting and entertaining when it happens periodically.
Yes.
On the tour.
Unfortunately, it seems like this year it does feel like we've been
the start has been very windy.
Lots of wind.
Yeah. So now that you're kind of inching closer to the top of that podium, I feel like this was a big leap for you because, previously you'd had tournaments where you were able to get on that lead card after maybe the first round. or even, you've had tournaments where you've had, top 15s, top 20s, you've been up there, but this is the first time, it's winning time. We're 4 strokes back at, 1 hole into the last round, 3 strokes back. Like, how close, now that you've made that huge jump to where, you may have had expectations before, but now you were right there on the doorstep. How does that kind of change your mindset going forward to, like, do you feel like you're right there and it's time to where you can win now? Or are you kind of like still thinking, I had a good event, but there's still a lot of work to be done before I'm ready to win?
Yeah. So last year was like the first time that I kind of had the first, holy smokes, like I'm kind of in that realm now of where if I play really good, it can be as good as anyone else. And that was at Goat Hill when I tied Ricky for the course record or whatever, the lead for the tournament. And then unfortunately kind of faded away as the tournament went on. That this year has felt like that too, of where it's like, I know my best rounds. Like when I go out and play my best, it is on par with anyone.
Yeah.
And I've been able to do that at a couple courses where I'll shoot either the lead for that day or potentially 1 or 2 off, and I'm kind of right in the mix. This was the first tournament, big tournament, obviously, because we're not counting everything off the tour. But this was the first big tournament where I was in the mix and I stayed in the mix.
Yeah.
And
over a 4-round tournament.
Tournament.
Very tough.
Also on a course that I feel like a lot of people probably wouldn't have thought I would do well at just because of how much OB there is.
Yeah.
So this was the first time of where I kind of went head to head and felt like going into the final day, I have a chance of winning this thing.
Yeah.
And I even, the way I finished hole 18 on the 3rd round, I finished it with the mindset of, I'm laying this 35-footer up because I'm okay with that 4-shot deficit. I feel like 4 shots is close enough for me to win.
If you can make up 3 shots, you can make up 4.
Yeah. Right. Versus I go for that putt, it hits the cage, it rolls down to OB. I miss that next putt. Now I'm taking an 8. Now I'm all of a sudden 6 or 7 shots out. That doesn't really seem as feasible. Right. So I was liking my chances. Obviously, I birdied the first hole, cut the lead down to 3. And I felt like if I would have put a pressure on Ricky early, that was really the only way I was going to win. Was having him feel like, holy smokes, I can't lose to Brodie. Like we're on hole 5 and I only have a 1-shot lead.
Right.
It didn't go that way, unfortunately, but it was a good feeling to have like that stage, that opportunity of like, I can win this thing. And I love the feeling. So obviously I'm going to continue to work to try to get back into that spot. But yeah, it felt great. And I know my abilities. I've played with all the top players.
Yeah.
They're not doing anything where I'm like, I can't do that.
Right.
I don't have that in my game.
Just consistency.
It's literally just being able to consistently execute the shots. And then the other thing I would say is, and this probably cost me maybe 6 to 7 shots at Supreme, which I actually ended up playing decently, of just routine shots, shanks.
Yeah.
I need to get like those bad shots completely out of
the big misses. Yeah.
The big misses, especially the ones where, a good one that's sticking in my head is 270-foot upshot, OB down the right-hand side, but the pin's on the left. So you're trying to throw like a straight shot through this gap and then finish on the left. And the miss is left. The miss is just get left. And if you hit a tree or whatever, get up and down for par, move on.
Right.
I shank it right into this bush, falls OB. Now I'm trying to get up and down for bogey.
Right.
Where I should be trying to get up and down for birdie with the
Par
at
worse.
worst at par. Those are those types of strokes that these guys aren't making those mistakes. These guys aren't going from a birdie look to a bogey. They're like if they throw a good tee shot, they're either getting a birdie or a par.
Yeah.
And there were multiple times where I would throw the best shot on the card and I'd be walking away with a bogey.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. If you're trying to win these tournaments, you can't do that.
Right. Yeah. Well, now that you're getting closer to potentially winning, I kind of was wondering, obviously you've had a long career before disc golf. This is kind of just your latest venture, really. And so with all the things you've accomplished with Ultimate Frisbee, just doing YouTube, as an entertainer, where would a win on the Pro Tour rank as far as the things you've been able to accomplish in your career?
I feel like it'd be towards the top. Maybe the top. I mean, obviously the team aspect of Ultimate Frisbee, like that's going to hold so much more weight in the sense of just like the memories, all the work of, on the track and all that stuff as, the blood, sweat, and tears that you put in with those, basically your brothers, essentially. That's going to be obviously hard to overcome that. But if we looked at it, clean slate of like, what's the most impressive feat this late in my career, after these many knee surgeries, jumping into a sport and trying to learn it from scratch. Yeah. If I'm able to pull that off, I feel like probably from all the stuff I've done, that probably takes the cake as the, if you go back in time and you're like, you're going to accomplish all these things except for one. Right. What don't you think it'd be? It'd probably be you're going to start disc golf when you're 33 after 3 knee surgeries, after never picking up really a disc golf disc and playing, and you're going to win a tournament in your first 3 years. Yeah. That would probably be like, that's not going to happen. So, especially because it's so much more reliant on you. Right. The team side, like I can have a bad game and my teammates can pick me up and we can still win. Yeah. You have to go out there and just perform every round to be able to win one of these. And it's getting so much harder. Right. Like if I would have started this back, like once I retired Ultimate, like in 28, when I was 28. Right. I don't think it'd be. I don't think it'd be that. To win a disc golf. I don't think it would be that crazy for me to win in the first 3 years back then. Yeah. I was also a little bit more explosive probably when I was 28. 5 years is a long time as you're getting old. But yeah, it'd be crazy. And it's obviously a goal of mine. It's something that I'm going to continue to strive for because it's all about putting in the work to try to get that W. Yeah. Well, and then it kind of brings me to my next question is obviously as an Ultimate Frisbee player, you had a pretty illustrious career, very well known in the Ultimate field and a very good player. How good, like what would you have to accomplish in disc golf and how good do you think you'd have to get to be as good as you were as an Ultimate player relative to the field? Like have the same kind of status as a disc golfer as you feel you had as an Ultimate player. Where would you have to get to in disc golf to be able to say, I'm a better disc golfer than I was an Ultimate player? It's a tough one. Yeah, I see what you're saying. It's weird because like in the college game, like my final year in the college game, I just felt like there wasn't anyone that could guard me. So like my final year at Florida, I really felt like if I played well, we were going to win, regardless of what my teammates did. Yeah. If I played good enough, we were going to win. And club obviously was a little bit different. And when the injuries started kicking in and stuff, that was a little bit different. But gosh, it would probably be like, it's so hard though to say like a team sport versus an individual sport, but it would probably be having to win several times. Yeah. Probably like winning 4 or 5 times a year. Okay. So like you're just basically saying you'd have to be a pretty dominant player on the tour. Every tournament I would be the favorite to win. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Pretty high. Is probably what yeah. Because at Florida, it's like every tournament we went to, if we didn't win, it was an upset, essentially. So yeah, I would. There's no wrong answer. So yeah, that'd be an interesting one for the fans to say because it's always interesting to hear what they have to say, how they perceive it. Yeah, how they perceive things differently. But yeah, I would say you'd have to be like at some point pretty dominant. I mean, I want to say like in the national championship game. I think we scored, I think it was like 15-13 or 15-12. And I want to say I had 12 assists and 2 goals and maybe like 7 Ds. Kind of blacked out. Tough. I kind of blacked out that game. It's a tough standard basically. Yeah, it's very tough. Yeah. It'd be tough. Yeah. But I would be very happy with just getting 1 win. Yeah. I'd be very happy with just 1 win. Definitely. So going kind of backwards a little bit. So when you got into disc golf, obviously getting into disc golf kind of later on at age 33, you had goals that you wanted to achieve getting into disc golf. It wasn't just like, I want to do this as a hobby. Like you had goals.
and you kind of had a timeline in your mind that you wanted to achieve them within.
Yeah.
How do you feel that your pace has been so far along that timeline than you had originally envisioned? Do you feel like you're ahead of things, right on schedule, or you're behind?
Well, I have one more world championship to bring Hunter's prophecy to truth. So
okay.
I got
this year's?
Yeah, this year.
Okay.
This is the last one.
Hey, it's same course you just played well at.
Yeah, he said in the first 3 years. You said 3 years, right? Not 5? I think he said 3 years. I think he said 3 years.
I think he did.
Yeah. No, I feel like obviously I would like to be further along. Unfortunately, I've had some things happen that have kind of caused, like the Lyme disease did not help.
Yeah.
And then getting COVID during the middle of or towards the end of last year also was terrible timing.
Yeah.
So I've had a couple of like, I would say like, road bumps. Is it road bumps? Is that the word?
Yeah.
That's speed bumps.
Speed bumps, road bumps, whatever.
Yeah. That have kind of maybe deterred my advancement in disc golf a little bit.
Yeah.
And then I would also say too, like maybe towards the beginning of my career, I was not as free with my own thoughts and my own process. And I was kind of being a little bit too reliant on others. And this year I really have, swing your own swing, as they say, right?
Right.
This year, I've really kind of taken that to heart a little bit more of like, my game is not going to look the same as
nobody's game does.
as this person or this person. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But if I can throw my shots better than anyone else, that's all that matters.
Right.
It doesn't matter what it looks like as long as I am able to do it. So I feel like I've been doing that more this year versus in the years past. Like even before tournaments, I would be like looking at how someone else's throws and I'm like, I don't throw that way. And I'm literally trying to change the way I'm throwing on Tuesday and Wednesday before Thursday, the tournament.
Yeah.
Now I'm like, I've gotten to the point of where I throw far enough backhand and forehand that now it's just all about getting the reps in and getting the timing down as best as I can to try to get the consistency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes sense. Well, when you first got into disc golf, a lot of people assume you had an advantage because of your Frisbee experience. It really wasn't because it's so different. You're pretty much working from scratch, especially
or kind of like working backwards.
Almost, yeah. You kind of had to work backwards and then from scratch.
Yeah.
But what is like one part of your game that you still maybe find lacking that when you first started you thought was going to be really easy for you to nail down?
I thought my forehand was going to be dominant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought coming in, because that was the one thing that I would probably say stuck out the most of my game in Ultimate was just like my power forehand. And that's from a standstill, right? Without any sort of run up. So I thought like coming in, like I'm just going to be able to crush forehands, and it's not the case.
Yeah.
Just the way with the angle control and all that stuff. And I'm still obviously working on it, but it was the thing that I probably struggled with the most. And so it was something that I didn't even work on that much because it's like, that is so far from being close to being good that let's work on the stuff that I'm actually willing to try. Hunter actually, when he was caddying for me at Idlewild, I decided that tournament to be like, all right, forehand is the play on so many of these holes. I'm going with forehand no matter what. And my forehand was trash at the time. And it cost me lots of strokes. So that's the thing that I thought was like, it translates, like I was able to pick up really quickly with the get freaky zone, obviously, the touch forehand, scramble, all that stuff, feel great. But like the power forehand, yikes. That was something that I was not expecting the disc to just immediately fly out of my hand and go straight right. And that's literally what they were doing for a long, long time.
Yeah. So since joining the sport, you've easily really been the most polarizing figure in the sport. There's definitely a lot of a love-hate relationship amongst disc golf fans. You've gotten a ton of fans within disc golf and brought a bunch in, but then a lot of the fans hate you. It's really become that clear. Dealing with all that backlash, is that something that you're able to really brush off since you've been in the spotlight for a while, or are there times where it really does kind of take a mental toll? Yeah.
So I don't know. It's crazy how life works sometimes, of where stuff happens to where you can build off of it and maybe it makes you a different person down the road to where you can handle situations differently. University of Florida, jumping in as a freshman, at that point, I had just been playing ultimate frisbee casually, essentially at high school for like 1 year. So I didn't really know that much. So whatever the captains and the best players in the team were telling you to do, you just did. And that year we were very aggressive. We were in, for those that don't know, ultimate frisbee is a self-officiated sport.
Yeah.
So you can essentially foul someone purposely and then say no, like no contest, like I fouled you.
Yeah.
And eventually kind of gain an advantage. So like something that you would look at in football and basketball, where let's say you're a defensive back and you get roasted deep and you grab them and you hold them. No one looks at that person and say that person's a terrible person, right? Because it's a part of the rules that you penalize. Same thing as someone is driving to the basket and they're about to dunk and you can't stop them. You foul them, you wrap them up, so they have to shoot free throws. No one looks at that player and thinks that person sucks. They're a terrible sport. It's a good foul.
Right.
In ultimate frisbee, because it's self-officiating, there is none of that. So if you actually foul someone on purpose because someone's going deep and you're like, I got to stop this guy from throwing that shot, and you foul, the problem is like there wasn't for what we were playing, there wasn't really a good foul system to where it actually gave an advantage for the team that got fouled. All that would happen is they wouldn't be able to throw that shot, and then you would basically just have your 10 seconds again to throw. No distance was gained or anything. Now in the AUDL, which is the pro league, they have referees, and if you foul someone, they actually will gain you distance. So if you keep fouling on purpose, you end up having to where they only have to throw one pass to score.
Right.
So in that situation, it's not really advantageous to foul.
Yeah. Sounds like you could abuse it in college.
We were a team that abused that rule, right? In the sense of where it's like, now I will say we were probably the most polarizing in the sense that we were the best team. So you kind of get a little bit more spotlight.
Yeah.
But when we did play like the top teams, something that we always wanted was observers.
Yeah.
And what observer is basically a referee that doesn't step in unless you ask them to step in. So if you call foul and I'm like, no, man, I didn't foul you, instead of me and you having to talk about it for a minute and a half, I could just be like, I didn't foul you. I'm going to go to the
arbitration,
observer.
basically.
Yeah, I'm going to go to the observer, the guy that's standing right here to call it. So long story short, we were a terrible team to play against.
Yeah.
Sportsmanship was terrible. All this stuff was terrible. All the way leading into my 5th year, to the point of where I actually left the team mid-season, because that was kind of a point too where I was like finding my faith and getting closer on that side of things. And I just did not like the type of person I was on the field. So I left the team. The team went out and played a tournament. I think they played just one tournament actually. And later on, we ended up having this like big like intervention where they came, a couple of the captains that were still on the team and some of the best players came to me and was like, hey, we want you back on the team. How do we make this happen?
Yeah.
And we talked for like 3 hours out in the cold until like 3 o'clock in the morning. And my whole thing was basically like, we're going to do, if we could do this, this, and this all differently, I'll come back.
Yeah.
And they're like, all right, done. And so from that point on, I felt like we had changed as a team. Now, when you have 4+ years as a team and that's what everyone thinks you are, it's nearly impossible. So like, that's why you'll see a lot of people still say like ultimate frisbee at Florida sucks. They were the worst sportsmen. And I agree with you. For 4.5 years, we were really terrible people to play against, but I was very proud of how our team handled ourselves towards that last portion of the time I was there.
Yeah.
And this kind of goes back to the whole notion of like, we were hated.
Right.
We were like, every time we went to a tournament and we were in the finals, there are no fans in ultimate frisbee.
Yeah.
So the only people in the only people watching are the teams that you beat, the teams that aren't in the finals.
Yeah.
They all hated us.
Right.
So I spent my entire ultimate frisbee career being hated, basically everyone rooting against.
Yeah.
So when I came into disc golf, and obviously people that probably don't even know my ultimate frisbee team, the stuff that happened in disc golf where it's like, I got a sponsorship right away.
Yeah.
I got a disc right away. I was getting people talking about me and all this. And that kind of, I think, created a lot of people being like, this guy didn't deserve it. This guy sucks. Without even knowing that I sucked in ultimate frisbee type of thing. that I think led for me to be like, you know what? It's okay. Like I can handle that. Where I feel like if I didn't have that, and also the social media side of things, like social media right now, I think some disc golfers are starting to see it a little bit this year of where their followings are getting big enough to where they are starting to see the negative stuff.
Right.
And it's tough.
Oh yeah.
It's when you're not used to it, it's really, really tough. Cause like when I was just making ultimate Frisbee videos and it was just going out to the 4, 5, 6,000 ultimate Frisbee people, everyone loved it. These videos are awesome. Sick. Awesome. So cool. As soon as I started making trick shot videos and they were getting hundreds of thousands of views, all of a sudden you start getting people being like, this is so stupid. This is lame.
Yeah.
You suck. You're never going to get a girlfriend. All these comments started coming in and you're like, whoa. It was hard at first to take that. Now, obviously I've been in a social media game forever, so I've seen it all. But I think long story short, I think all of that has happened in my past has made it to where I can show up to a Pro Tour event, be on a lead card, and have people talk trash to me, to my face, whatever it may be, and have that not affect my play.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that's like a blessing in disguise, because that is something that if you don't have that experience and you get thrown in there, it is something that is terrible. Because when it first was happening to me, it was very hard.
It's all personal. You take it personally when it first starts happening. Definitely. Yeah. Well, one of the topics that kind of have surrounded you since joining disc golf, and this is kind of honestly probably one of the reasons you get some of the hate, is just kind of the golf versus disc golf sort of topic. Originally when you came in, you were very, very dead set on pretty much every aspect, needing to work to strive to emulate towards golf, even, whether a lot of it having to do on the professional side, but some of it actually like within rules of the game, things like that. Just for me knowing you, I know that your opinion has softened on some of those things as you've been in the game longer. What are, how much do you think your opinion has changed since you've been in disc golf? Like, what have you realized that's kind of changed things on that?
Yeah, I mean, dress code obviously is one of the big ones I would say that I have flipped on, of where when I first was coming in, I was very much on like the side of like, we need to be wearing stuff like they do in golf, where polos, tucked in shirts, belts, nice hats, slacks or shorts, whatever it may be. I've completely flipped on that. I think we should definitely be more open to letting people, one, kind of express their originality and stuff, right? Of where if they do want to wear jerseys with their logos on it or whatever, that's fine. I also think like just what we're doing, it's almost, I would say it's more closer to like tennis. So like the type of apparel tennis players wear seem more appropriate than the type of apparel golfers wear.
Right.
So that I've kind of flipped on. I'm trying to think. There might have been a couple other things that I feel like I have definitely like seen that side of where it's like, oh yeah, that probably does make a little bit more sense.
Right.
Obviously, I'm still very firm on a lot of things like ratings. I haven't changed my mind on ratings, drop zones, kind of like those type of things I haven't really changed my mind on.
Yeah.
I guess I'm also a little bit more open to having some tournaments where the winning score is like 30 under or plus.
Yeah.
Where I think before I was very much like, no, like we need to have it to where like the winners are always like 12, 13, 14 under. I've definitely see how like some courses like the Preserve, going in, the winner's going to shoot 30 under or more.
Yeah.
I think as long as it's not every single tournament, I think that's fine. So I'm more open towards that. I feel like there were definitely a couple other things. I'm blanking on them now.
I would say though, but basically though, most of what you've kind of changed on is just stuff that you just kind of had to realize from being in the sport long enough and being on tour.
Yeah. I think obviously when you come in, I was always trying to do like put my best like intentions for the sport and be like, have like an outsider view of like, hey, this is stuff that these sports are doing that are very successful. Why aren't we doing that?
Right.
And I still think a lot of like the business side of stuff makes sense.
Business side definitely more.
But there are, I think, some things like on like the I guess live too, the live versus post. That was like another one.
Yeah.
I feel like maybe I've softened my my stance on that a little bit. Yeah. I still think live is king. I still think live is going to be the thing that brings in the most money for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. But now it's like, what we kind of talked about, I guess, when I first came in is kind of actually happening, right? Like Jomez just came out saying that they've paid an absorbent amount of money for the rights, where none of that was really ever talked about when I first came in. It just always kind of seemed like if anything, the tournaments and stuff were paying for these companies to come out and film them versus the other way around. Yeah. So, but I definitely am more softened on the idea of like, until live can take like coverage to the next level. Yeah. I still think post-produce is something that is helping grow disc golf. It's helping more people get into it, more people watch and pay attention to it. Yeah. And it's a good thing to have while disc golf builds to where once live has enough cameras and have enough producers and storylines and all that stuff to create that incredible product, then I think post-produce probably doesn't really exist as much in that same scale.
Right. So with that being said, let's say you become commissioner of all of disc golf for one day. So you have control over the PDGA, the Pro Tour, whatever disc golf entity you want control over. Okay. What are first three changes that you make? And they can be anything. Now, let's say within the realm of the budget that we're still working with.
Okay. First one, clearly ratings go away for pros.
Ratings are gone.
Second one would probably be the redistribution of the purses.
Yes.
Would be the next one. And I would say, to couple that, I would say cuts as well. So every event would have a cut. So if it's a 3-day event, cuts after the second round. 4-day event, cuts after the second round.
Do you want second day cuts for 4 rounders?
Yes. Yeah. So redistribution, cuts, no ratings. And then the other thing I would do would be like almost like more of a clear separation from the PDGA and the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Okay. So like,
so far this agenda is very anti-PDGA.
Well,
which isn't a problem.
No, I mean, I think the PDGA does great stuff. Like they do a great job, but like, I think there just are some rules that the Disc Golf Pro Tour can't adjust, can't change because the PDGA is focusing on rules for everything, for C tiers, B tiers, A tiers that don't affect. So like a good example is we had I can't remember who it was, but he was actually a really nice guy. He was one of the PDGA's, he works for the PDGA and he was one of the marshals. Okay. So he was following us around, and like if there was ever any rules questions or anything like that, he was kind of like helping out to come in. And there was one hole where we basically, it's hole 8 at Emporia Country Club. So most people should know that par 5 where you've got like the swimming pool right behind where, kids last year or whatever were like talking trash to players. But it's that big tee shot that you throw like down the hill and you throw it like wide over a wide hyzer, and you kind of have it come back in bounds. So there were all these fans, during the final round, there were all these fans lined up on the right-hand side, OB. The problem with where they was we're not just throwing over them and then having it come back in bounds. We're throwing it like past them to where there's a chance that it comes back in bounds, like it's coming back in bounds through them, not over them. Yeah. And now you're having to rely on them to just like dodge and get out of the way. So I asked the PDGA guy, because, knowing me, I just have scenarios go all the way in my head. I'm like, what happens if I throw a disc and someone like doesn't like me, like grabs their stool, and as the disc is coming back in bounds,
bats that thing out of the air,
bats it down, OB, never in bounds. What happens? And he's like,
I think it's OB.
He's like, I think it's just OB. And he's like,
no fan interference.
Now he did say he was going to take that situation and bring it back and talk about it.
Yeah.
But that's my point, is I think the PDGA isn't thinking about just the Disc Golf Pro Tour and what could happen. Because that scenario is a ridiculous scenario. And I think a lot of the misunderstanding from me when I first came in was everything I was saying was only in regards to the Pro Tour. It was only in regards to the Elite Series, Silver Series, Majors. I wasn't talking anything about any of your local leagues, anything like that. And I think some people probably were like, oh, he's coming in trying to change everything. I was only concerned about that stuff. And I think that is the issue, is the PDGA is thinking about everything versus just focusing on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, which I don't think they should.
Yeah.
But the Disc Golf Pro Tour should just focus on the Disc Golf Pro Tour.
Right.
And they should see like, hey, we're going to have signs and stuff out in the course. Mm-hmm. That's not going to be part of the course.
Yeah.
That is stuff that we're putting there for advertisements.
Should be
so if your disc is right in front of a sign, you don't have to do a standstill, or you don't have to do like some weird like hop over the sign.
Yeah.
You can get relief off the sign. Mm-hmm. So I would say that would be like the separation of where the Pro Tour can look at things that make sense for them at their events and put those things in place, but still have like the PDGA as like the official rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Well, one last little segment before we're done here. I like to do some power rankings.
Heck yeah.
So we're going to do some quick top 3 power rankings. We'll start disc golf related. We'll just go with your current power rankings, top 3 discs.
Top 3 discs. Number 1 is going to be the Nuke. Number 2 would be the Zone. Number 3 would be the Vulture.
Vulture, okay.
I almost went Raptor, but I think Vulture.
You do have quite a lot of favorites, I feel like. I feel like there's quite a lot of discs that you like rely on a lot.
I love, like, I really like all the discs I have this year.
Yeah.
I think that's huge too. I think it took me a long time to finally get to the disc that I'm comfortable with.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I know what shots I need. And now it's like, all right, I have like 4 Vultures, right? And so when I lose one or one gets beat in, I know exactly the type of stability I'm looking to fit that slot.
Very true. Next power ranking, Gatorade flavors, top 3.
Ooh, Glacier Freeze.
Coming in at 1?
Yes.
Wow. That is a very like hit or miss flavor for people. I'm like, I kind of sit on the fence with that one. I'm okay with it.
It's not Cool Blue.
No,
Cool Blue is trash.
Light blue.
Light blue. Glacier Freeze. Yeah.
Glacier Freeze. Yeah. You think Cool Blue is trash?
Yes.
I think Cool Blue might be my favorite.
Cool Blue might be one of the worst.
I love Cool Blue.
I do not like Cool Blue at all.
Big fan.
Then I'd probably go Lemon Lime.
Yeah. Underrated.
Lemon Lime. And then the next one, I'm just going like classics because obviously, if you haven't seen either, have you seen my brother's collection of Gatorade?
Yeah, that's why
video. You seen that? Yeah. So yeah, there's tons of Gatorade flavors. So I'm not going crazy.
No, I mean,
because I think there's like there used to be like a strawberry kiwi one that was like fire.
There's like a tropical mango. I just really like. It gets out of control after a while.
Is it? What's the purple one? Is that just grape?
The original purple is, I think the original one is still grape.
Just grape?
There is a purple one that has something to do with rain.
Yes, rain. Oh, the rains were before Gatorade Zero.
Yeah. But I think there's still a purple flavor that has rain in the name. Like it is in the Gatorade Rain series.
Oh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And I don't know if it's complete. There is just grape though still.
Yeah.
So I think
I'd probably go with
stands.
grape. Yeah. I'm a big Gatorade Zero guy though.
Yeah.
Like I actually am against the normal Gatorade now. Even though there's more sugar and it's supposed to taste better.
Yeah.
I think the Gatorade Zero tastes better.
I've always thought that too.
Like I think like watered down Gatorade, like an original watered down Gatorade was always, I thought, a little bit better. It's too strong.
Yeah.
It's a little too thick.
I do think the best Gatorade of all time still is Tiger Woods Gatorade.
Tiger Woods
Gatorade was nuts.
Was it Code Red or they had
they had a fruit punch. All of theirs just tasted like juice.
Yeah,
that's the thing.
Yeah.
So like when I was a little kid when those came out and like it was like
good.
Oh, this is juice.
Yeah, those are very good.
All right, last power rankings, TV shows.
Office number 1. Then I would go, because I'm not doing like Netflix stuff, right?
No,
like I'm doing stuff.
It could be anything.
All right, we'll go Office number 1, Seinfeld number 2, Legends of the Hidden Temple number 3.
Oh, see, that was right on the edge of where my childhood was. So I got to see Legends of the Hidden Temple.
When they were going through like that last maze and those guys would jump out and scare the kids.
I don't know if I've ever envied like a kid on a television show as much as the kids that got to run that show. I wanted it so bad.
I went to some Disney thing. I want to say it was like I can't remember what it was. I was doing something with Gronk, Nickelodeon. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was Nick,
some Nickelodeon thing with Gronk. And I was able to get a green I think it was green monkeys or green bear. Oh no, blue barracudas. Was it the green monkeys?
I forget.
I have a Legend of the Thanos Temple shirt.
Wow.
And it's awesome.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Well, that is going to do it for our first live in studio episode. Thanks for joining.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, and thanks again to Brodie for joining. Hopefully you enjoyed the live in studio format. Obviously, that's not going to be the typical format for the show if you've watched before. But since Brodie was in town, we figured it'd be great to take advantage of that and have him in studio. And I think it was great getting a lot of insight going on what's going on within his disc golf career at the moment. But anyways, we'll be back next Thursday with another interview. Probably won't be live in studio. We'll be back to the normal format. But make sure to check it out, and we'll see you then.